Welcome, everybody. We're back for, oh my God, we survived a second episode, boys. What do you think about that? Of The Rub. If you haven't checked out where you can actually get our podcast and get it on anywhere you can basically get a podcast, Chris, I believe it's Spotify, Google, anywhere else that I need to know about?
Basically everywhere. Spotify, Google, Apple.
Yeah, and you can also follow us on Facebook under The Rub. We're also there too. So if you have any questions or any questions that you want to see on the show, you can fire us off some questions, on Facebook. So we're here with the illustrious WrestleMania episode, but who are we without our wonderful, panel of, experts that we have. So let's start it off. Josh, what did you think of WrestleMania? How was it, buddy?
I think WrestleMania was a huge success. I'm was quite pleased with the way things went. The results were they had some swerves and some interesting things. I was really happy with how it went, and it was a great 2 nights.
Amazing. And with our other part of the illustrious panel, we have Chris. Chris, you have long hair. What do you say about that? I heard you're going to be getting a haircut this week. Is that accurate?
Well, I don't know where your intel is, but yes, I will be getting a haircut. Possibly not this week, but in the coming future. I really enjoyed everything about night one. Night two kind of took away from it a little bit. I didn't think night two was as exciting. And I mean, I didn't really want Cody Rhodes to win, and then watching the match and then kind of going back and thinking about it, I don't think I would have really minded if he won. So, and I became a big fan of Omos. So I'm pretty happy about getting that Omos shirt when it finally comes out.
Yeah, I think we're all going to be trying to rep that Omos shirt. I think he definitely had a great performance. But with that being said, we might get to that, we might not. It depends on how the questions roll. But first major question that we had, obviously the big news, what we should be talking about right off the bat is WrestleMania and how those events for day one and day two were pretty much, greatest, I don't know about greatest spectacle of all time, but for wrestling, it's probably the biggest spectacle of the year. But there's a little bit of news that overshadowed that, which was the WWE sale to Endeavour that happened. Basically, it seemed like that was getting into the final stages on Saturday or Sunday, and was basically announced by Triple H on Raw on Monday in a way. So my question to you guys as the panel, and we'll start with Josh on this one, is this deal to Endeavour going to be good for business, do you think, or do you think it's going to be bad for business based on the structure of the deal?
Yeah, I think it's a good thing. I was actually, I mean, I didn't realize that they were even in the running for the purchase. I think this makes the one of the most sense to me. It's great because it's got some opportunities for some more crossover that as well promotes both brands. It'll also give WWE like an even bigger market where they can cross promote events, and they might even be able to attract new fans to the sport and give some more legitimacy to the sport. Even though it is scripted, the athletes are real. And I think that it could be a great change. It'll be interesting to see how they handle creative and if they're going to have any impact on that. I imagine they will, being the majority owners. But I think it's going to be a good thing.
Chris, what are your thoughts? Good or bad for business? Do you think that it's going to be a good thing for the Endeavour sale based on what you see with the UFC? What are your thoughts?
I think it's great for Vince, and I think he's got a lot of money now for lawyers, but I don't know. I think I wrote down some notes today about that specifically, and one of the first things that I wrote down was unstoppable, because if you look at UFC where they are in their market, and you look at WWE where they are in their market, they're the two, like, that is where everybody wants to go, everybody wants to work there. So I mean, with McMahon and Dana White together, who knows what wild things we're going to be seeing, because anything could happen. And the other note I wrote down, and this is because they both kind of, they both really like their time there, is Saudi, because I can only imagine what the partnerships with Saudi is going to be, because both those organizations have a pretty close, tight relationship. So I mean, event-wise, production-wise, money coming from there, I don't know. It's we might see some really big things in the future.
You kind of look at the numbers when you're going across, and you kind of look at what was it, 51% of the shares will be sold by WWE, 49% of the shares will be kept by current WWE shareholders, and you're looking at a company valuation of $9 billion. Like, that's an insane number when you're thinking about it, and I have to agree, when you're looking at what Endeavor's done with the UFC and getting it, I mean, I don't know how far along Endeavor was in the UFC. I followed it a lot in the beginning. I've kind of petered off a little bit now. But, you know, you look at how far they've come with TV deals, documentaries, you have shows that are on just numerous platforms all the way across. Like, it is definitely like a global sports brand. And you know what? Like, you're going through, you still have pay-per-view sales and generation that comes from that. There's so many things that are available that Endeavor has probably put into that company. Now, you kind of look at what we have for WWE and what's going through. Now, where do they take it forward? I think my concern is, do we eventually get off this kind of the family product and go back to something that's more of an attitude era style? I mean, I don't know if it'll ever happen, but it's really interesting to see now where you have different people in different positions that can make a different direction for the company if needed, and the money is clearly there. So I'm with you, Josh. I don't know how creative is going to look after it when it's all said and done, but hopefully the product's good, and it's great for the wrestling fan. I think if they tailor to the wrestling fan and they tailor to what it's about, create those atmospheres, create those moments and those experiences, I think that really it's going to be a good situation for them moving forward. There's only more money to be made. So
The other thing is that they won't be booking against each other either, right? So now it's like, I imagine you wouldn't be booking your biggest promotion on the same night that, you know, your other company is also booking their biggest promotion or another big promotion on, right? So it's like they're not going to be competing with each other for market space as much,
no,
potentially.
for sure. And it'd be nice. You know what? I found that I'm not a big fan of the Saturday pay-per-views for WWE. It's just something that I've never liked. I really loved when it was the Sunday pay-per-views, because they usually did coincide with UFC when I was really watching them, or with other events that were going on. So Sunday nights were always open. It'll be interesting to see, but you're right that there won't be as much head-to-head for that, and I think that's a good thing, which will be great. Now, even though that took away a little bit from the luster of WrestleMania, from what we were kind of reading all the way through the weekend when we were going through that, but I mean, WrestleMania is, like we said in the beginning, it's the biggest event of the year. It is absolutely massive. I mean, we were looking at, somebody was saying that there was a stat that came on one of the shows that said that apparently, like, during WrestleMania weekend, there's almost 2 billion imprints of the WWE that happened over the course of those from Friday to Sunday, which, if you think about it, is like 25% of the world's population, which is pretty nuts when you think about that. Now, absolutely massive event. They've gone from one night to 2 nights. Now, my big question for this is, we heard Chris talk about a little bit of the luster, so we know that he's going to pick day one. Chris, what were some of the things that you really liked about day one, and some of the things that you didn't like about day two, or vice versa? Just kind of give us what your overall thoughts were of both nights.
Night one, pleasantly surprised with Dom. I thought Dom possibly showed his best in the ring. I know we're gonna get to it later, so I won't talk about my other favorite parts about it. But let's see, Logan Paul. As I said, I'm a mark for Logan Paul, so I enjoyed his match with Seth quite a bit, and you know, it's good to see Seth get out there and the celeb or the part timer doesn't go over. I mean, not he'd probably be a consummate professional about it, putting him over for real. But I think good. You know, it's good to see him with the win. He's coming off a few pretty tough matches and pay-per-view losses.
I think the big thing for that is too, is you think about how many times I think he lost to Cody Rhodes 3 times in a row. Like, he needed a W on that stage.
He definitely needed it. It was he was not to say he'd be relevant. He's a really colorful character now, so he wouldn't be irrelevant. But I mean, four big pay-per-view losses in a row, leading off the fourth one itself. If that was WrestleMania, I mean, it'd be hard to come back from that. Charlotte and Ripley. I mean, that was a great match. Charlotte's willing to just put every part of her body on the line, and I mean, there were a couple times where, you know, I jumped up and especially that, was it the German suplex, and it looked like she landed right on her face, and yeah, it's Charlotte Flair. She's fine. She's going to continue on. So those are basically my highlights of, and the Kevin Owens, Sami Zayn is a good match. Great storytelling. You saw emotion, which was good. Like it was a believable main event where you believe that people actually didn't like each other and Sammy gave him the last shot. So yeah, it was really entertaining all around that main event for night one. Moving into night two, I thought Omos did about as good as he possibly could. So
Yeah.
good for him. Asuka, I would have liked to see Asuka go over on Bianca on that one. What's Asuka over 7 at WrestleMania?
I don't know. I don't know what the stat is, but she's definitely lost a lot more than she's won. I don't know if she has won at WrestleMania, so we'll have to double check the stats on that. That's actually a good one for me to check.
Yeah, I thought I read that somewhere yesterday. So yeah, I would have liked her to have come out of there with a W, or at least seen a title change on night 2.
I always find it's rough to be on night 2 as well when you're going through it, right? Because basically a lot of motion. You don't know how much emotion's been taken out of night 1 and how many people are still there. So it's kind of it's kind of weird, eh? You're getting over night 1 and then you're right back into the throw of heightened emotions.
Yeah. And I believe I put it in our chat as well that said, I could really use some Shane McMahon at this WrestleMania, and then eventually all I see or hear is "Here comes the money," and then he blows his quad really bad. And the other part I liked about that is we were talking about it. We don't know if Snoop maybe took it upon his own to maybe go in there and save the segment. Either if that was on him, if he made that decision, that's some ring IQ there that we're seeing. And if not, somebody just got into his ear quick enough so that he could go out and save the segment.
They're saying he saved it on his own. The Triple H is giving him the praise on that, saying that he acted quickly and impromptu. I mean, there was no way that they planned on him doing the people's elbow unless that was already part of the plan, and Shane would have him go over and do that as well, which is a possibility. He could have just been playing out like the end where he gets involved because he'd been fighting with the Miz the whole time, but it seemed like he from the reaction from Triple H is that he did that all on his own.
Absolutely. And it's crazy to watch. I think, Chris, is there anything else that you wanted to add? I know that I think the only thing you're really missing there is just the main event before we get into Josh's thoughts.
Yeah, main event was okay. Well, I don't know. I wasn't huge on it, but it did surprise me. That Cody didn't get it the way it was set up. I thought we were just waiting for the home run. It was on the tee, and Cody was going to get the finish to his story, but. Maybe it's true. I'm reading out there. Triple H never forgets.
Yeah, for sure. And so it's pretty it's pretty interesting to see. Josh, before we go into with you, just the odds makers, just to let everybody know as a stat, the odds makers on many sites actually had Cody Rhodes as a minus 550 favorite to win that main event. Yep. And Roman was over 3. Yeah, so if you picked Roman Reigns at 3 as a 3-1 dog, you would have made a ton of money. But Josh, what are your thoughts of WrestleMania night 1 going into night 2, and how did you feel about watching the event over the course of the 2 days?
Yeah, I thought it was. I mean, obviously, for any event that this long, you're going to have a lot of dogs, and you're going to have a couple of winners, and obviously there was matches that were unnecessary but filled time. The first match, Cena versus Theory, was it wasn't even worth watching. The story wasn't anything to me. Could see John Cena calling moves. It is what it is. I actually had forgotten that the Street Profits went over when they talked about yesterday when they had won, when they were challenging Sammy and Kevin. They said the Street Profits won, and that's how much I paid attention to that match because it just seemed irrelevant to me. It wasn't a terrible match, but it wasn't anything to write home about. The Seth Rollins Logan Paul match, it was a great match. I think that it did a great job, and even though I don't like Logan Paul, he's obviously puts on a great show. So I was quite pleased with that match, and definitely happy with the finish. Rollins deserves to go over. I think that if anything, this can set Rollins up in the right direction to move him towards potentially having, a title run or even challenge for the title, so that you have some more viable secondary or guys who are going to challenge for the title. The women's match with damage control and Becky Lynch, Lita, Trish Stratus. I'm going to give a shout out to Dakota Kai for this match, because I think that she was really the star of this match. She worked with Lita and Trish, it seems, the most, and she was really selling their moves. And I was just making mental notes of her flying into the ring corner after a half-assed launch from Lita or Trish, and even though the match wasn't really good, I think that Dakota Kai, Io Sky, and Bayley obviously were the stars of that match, getting them over. Becky Lynch, obviously, she's great, but I think that Dakota Kai was the star of that match, and I would give her a star for the event, because she put over two wrestlers who haven't been in the ring for a long time. The Rey Mysterio Dominic match, I'm sure we'll talk more about this. I really enjoyed this match. I agree with Chris. This was Dominic's best match I've ever seen him in. It's clear that him and Rey have been working together, and he's improving. I still think he needs to improve his moveset. He's too big to be performing Rey Mysterio's moves, and the 619 looks so sloppy when he does it, regardless of how strong and how big he is. It's just not a move for him, in my opinion.
When you're thinking about Dom and his moveset, I almost think it's funny, because we kind of, nobody believes his persona as like this prison Dom or this heel, but he's actually grown into one of probably the best heels that are on either one of the brands, because he gets the most hate out of everybody. Like, it seems like if there's a Latino in the crowd, they're going to just absolutely fucking hate that guy for everything that he says about his mother, his father, and everything. It makes it great. But I almost think that the reason that he doesn't do those moves sloppy is that he doesn't want to hurt anybody. Do you get that feeling when you're watching him?
No, I just think that he's long and lanky, and that the 619 need to be tight and controlled. And it's just when you see Rey, it's hard, because when you see Rey perform the move and then you see Dominic perform the move, it looks so much worse when Dominic does it. So it's just that, like, when you have someone who is so polished, and he's a perfect example for his style of wrestling, that, like, if you're going to have a guy who's 6'1" doing those same things, I want to see like a Ricochet or someone, who is an impressive physical specimen. Not to say that Dominic's not, he's a lot better than he was, I'd say a year ago, but he's just not impressive to me physically. So I think that he needs a different move set. It's just not, doesn't fit his body type. It just doesn't look right when he does it. That's all.
Makes sense.
And if you're gonna do a frog splash when there's like 20 people doing the frog splash, you're the worst one doing it. You might not want to do the frog splash anymore. Yeah. Anyways, so continue with night one, Rhea Ripley versus Charlotte Flair. This was the match of the night for me until the tag match. Obviously, I think that they put on, it's one of the best women's matches I've ever seen. Not to sell any of the women short, but I think that these are the two of the best female wrestlers in the business right now. Charlotte Flair of all time, and Rhea Ripley. I think she's going to be putting her stamp on that coming soon. They're just so physically impressive, and it's so nice to see the women be that dominant. And I think that's what's lacking in a lot of the women's matches, is that because they have a lot of smaller women wrestling these bigger women, it's hard to show the dominance is. It's not just hard to show the dominance as much, but it's that, like, when you see a smaller woman dominating like a Rhea Ripley, or throwing her with a whip, an Irish whip or something like that, it's not believable, because when they book the men, you never see a Rey Mysterio Irish whipping anybody bigger than him. Like, there's always a turnaround. So I really enjoyed this match, because they really did a great job. And like, it's Rhea Ripley going over is exactly what the women's division needs right now. And you could see at the end of the match, Charlotte had a smile on her face, knowing that the battle's not over, but that she now has respect for Rhea Ripley because they put on that match. And it's more than just her, having to work. It was just, what a great match.
Did anybody else kind of notice Charlotte Flair, like, no selling the finisher off the top rope? Like, she gets pinned and then just rolls out of the ring on her knees and, like, upset right away.
It looked like, she like nodded her head and said, "You got me," and that was kind of it. I don't think she sold it. I just think that, like, she needed to get out of there to give Rhea her moment in the ring where it was all hers on her own.
Yeah, and I think what happens is that there's kind of some movement that's come from since that's actually happened, right? So, in I think in the presser, like basically, Rhea talked and kind of put Charlotte over, and then you didn't really hear Charlotte's response until the next day, which was on Twitter, and she actually did say, gave Rhea her props, and said that Rhea is going to do an amazing job with the belt, and like just kind of really gave her kind of a champion send off. Now, rumors are coming out this morning saying that she's going to probably be taking a break for a little while before she comes back. So Charlotte's been known in her career to take these breaks as part of it, just to kind of heal up and kind of do some other things on the side because she does have some businesses. So she informed officials apparently of a break, and she will be taking that. How long, we don't know at this point, but just to provide some insight from what happened on the weekend, because I definitely noticed something on the top, Chris, but it didn't. I don't know if it was on purpose. It didn't feel like that after what was said on Twitter.
Yeah, and then obviously with on day night one, the final match, it was great. It was fantastic. What an emotional journey it was. Obviously I don't think it's over. It's going to continue for a while. But it just gave the fans what they deserve in this story. And, I think the fans really, really wanted Sammy to go over and win the title, but I think this is more fitting because it gives you Kevin Owens and Sammy, and then, potentially sets up Sammy versus Kevin later when they ultimately break up and go into a fight, because, that's always what's going to happen. It seems like, but that's going to be a great story too, I think, that because now Sammy is a main eventer. And not to say that he wasn't before, but they never booked him like that. So, and that's what I thought about night one. Night two wasn't as good. It's I agree. Omos, whatever. Omos, yes, Omos, as Brock would call him, Omos or whatever it is. But I really enjoyed that match. I think that he showed some strengths that we knew he had, and for him to throw Brock around, it was a big sign. Unfortunately, of course, they're not going to give him the win there, but I think it's hard because it's like you're booking this guy to be a giant, and then you put him against Braun Strowman and he loses, then you put him against Brock Lesnar and he loses. It's like, how many guys smaller than him are gonna go over on him? I think this might be the year where he starts to get a big push. So hopefully that's the case. I don't think he can have many long matches, but it'll be interesting. I won't even talk about the women's tag match. It wasn't very good. I'd say the best match for me of this night was the triple threat match, just based on the physicality. It wasn't necessarily as good of a story as the main event, but it was definitely the most physical match of, I would say, the two nights, just based on the damage. Maybe not the most physical, but the most damage taken. Those three men chests were, bloody. It seemed, from like everybody had a raspberry on their chest. And, anytime you get Gunther in a chop off, you're going to see some huge welts on everybody's chest. So I was really enjoyed that match. I like the finish as well. I think Gunther's a great intercontinental champion. He's he plays, even though, he plays the heel, but it's just, I don't know. It's something else. I think he's next level there too. So, you're looking at a future champion.
I thought if he would have lost the belt, I thought they were putting him in line for something bigger. Like, if that's what my thinking of it was. If he, let's say, he loses the belt, is that he's gonna get a push up to that perimeter or like inside the circle of those title challengers, which I think we'll see, but would have been nice to see that night. But still good to see him get his moment.
I think you're looking at the longevity of titles, and that's something that we were talking a little bit about yesterday, and how like the reign can either be meaningful or it doesn't seem meaningful based on what it is. And I think his reign is actually really meaningful, because there have been some long Intercontinental champions, but he's also, I think, the longest person that's ever been in a Royal Rumble. Like, there's just so many things that they've given this guy. And you know what? If you ever watched the old Walter matches when he was 300 pounds and wrestling on the indies, and you watched him, you could see that he was a great storyteller, because in the indies, you don't have time to make stories. You just show up and you fight. And so when you're kind of going through it, you only have like a little bit of interaction with the person you're with, but you can see him tell a story with minimal time when he was on the indies. And you know what? And for WWE, they look at big guys, and when he was really big, like when he was 300 pounds, he was still a physical asset. But I almost say he's so much better in this trimmed down version because he can move more. He's still got that height. I still think, in all honesty, before he gets to where he needs to go, probably in the next couple of years, he's probably going to have to put on probably about 20 or 30 pounds muscle just by a look standpoint. But he's a big boy and can do a lot of things in that ring, and he can fight. He can outthink you. He's a technical wrestler. He can do so many things. And I think, in my opinion, that was the best match of the night on night 2 by far. Like the crowd was hot for it.
He's everything you just listed are those are all the points of a perfect Intercontinental champion, and that's where he is. He's that Intercontinental, like Bret Hart. He's one of those Intercontinental champions. Puts that prestige back in the belt.
And he's a guy that's going to fight every night, right? Like, that's the thing, is you need your Intercontinental champion to be on every card, putting the title on a line, and you need someone like that to be able to win every night, because you can't have him lose the title as often, because then it's not as meaningful. You want to have him, and then you build him to be the next heavyweight champion in 2 years,
Yeah, and which is why kind of like, we kind of wonder, my last point on it is why we kind of wonder why Dolph Ziggler's just sitting on the sidelines, because that seems like it's perfectly tailored for him, right? But anyways, that's another side of the story. When we get to it, Josh, any more final thoughts on night 2? Anything on the main event?
No, just I'm disappointed that Asuka didn't go over. I was really sad that she missed the mist. As soon as she missed the mist, that she was not winning. Hell in a Cell, I think, got shut down because of the injury. Obviously, I think it took a lot of wind out of the match. But it was a good match overall. But it was the wind got taken out with that injury when the doctor came in. And the final match, I thought it was a really good match. It's just kind of getting to be redundant for me with Roman Reigns. I really enjoy him as a champion, but it's the same thing over and over again. 3 or 4 interferences and then a win. So, it'd be nice to see. I know that's how a heel goes over a lot of the times, but it's just it's almost discounting his championship to me.
Yeah, and you know what? That's something that we're going to be talking about a little bit later in the podcast. But one of the big statistic for Finn Balor's head, 15 staples in his head after the ladder hit. So he was in the hospital, and if you want to see the gruesome picture, it is actually on his Twitter, because it was there basically this afternoon when I checked. So with that being said, that's a really good overview, gents. With that, we're kind of talking about, this big kind of peacocking stage that WrestleMania is, 80,000 people at, SoFi Stadium, biggest night of the year, used to be the biggest pay-per-view expense out of our pockets when things used to be on pay-per-view. So everything about WrestleMania is big. So my question to you guys is, if you had to pick the best entrance for the evening, who was it and why? Starting with Chris. Chris, who had the best entrance at WrestleMania?
Oh, 100% Dominic Mysterio. Oh my God. So good. He just coming in, how long it was, and just and the lead up to it. Just Dom, we don't understand what Dom's been through. He's spent a night in jail. Come on.
Spent 9 hours in prison.
I really liked Ray coming in with the throwback to Eddie, Snoop driving the car. I really liked it. And yeah, so that's those two. And I told you guys right away when I saw it, I'm like, this is perfect for Dom. And just got me. Other than that, I'm a big entrance guy, and it's hard to... Edges was cool. That was a different type of mask that I've seen. I haven't seen that kind of mask before, and it wasn't kind of hokey pokey where wrestling sometimes, it's just really not well done, and it's bulky and, lumps all over when they try to do masks. But this one was pretty good. So that was a pretty cool entrance. The Demon's entrance is always good. It's always good to see that. And Shane McMahon, here comes the money. Those are my favorite entrances.
Josh, yeah, those are some great ones. Josh, what about yourself? Anything that stands out other from that, or anything that you want to add to what Chris is saying?
Okay, yeah. I mean, so I agree. I have Rey Mysterio as my favorite entrance. But you know what? I'm going to give shout out to Logan Paul on his entrance coming in on a harness. It's it's definitely a spectacle. It's interesting to see when WWE's doing entrances like that. Owen falling from the sky. You'd think that, oh crap, are they ever going to do that again? So not to say that it was a spectacular entrance, but him coming from the hanging was pretty impressive. So, I'll give him props to that. But definitely Rey Mysterio was the highlight for me. And he definitely, when he got onto the stage, there was that huge pop, and you could just feel the audience, willing him to whoop his son in front of them. So, I think that was it for me.
I think I'm going to go a little bit off the grid and probably go with Seth Rollins. I think that was the entrance that I was waiting for all WrestleMania. I definitely didn't expect him to show up with something out of his wife's closet. But I think at the end of the day, when you're going through that, I think having the conductor there and really kind of guiding the whole crowd to get them all involved. I mean, I think there'd be something special to be him and to have some like. I think when you're a wrestler and you're looking for crowd interaction and people to kind of go through, I think there's nothing better than somebody singing your song. It's like kind of like, we've been in the crowd, Josh, you and I, when we, when Jericho's song played and, when Judas plays and you sing it and it just goes crazy. And like that was in front of like 5,000 people. Can you imagine that in front of 80,000 people? Like that must be like the biggest trip of all time. And I just think his entrance was so well done. It was nice and slow. He was there with the conductor. He kind of did his stupid laugh and kind of walked around, and I think he was really just trying to tell kind of like Logan Paul that, hey, as much as your entrance, you're coming in on a harness and you do things big, he goes, I'm going to show you how to kind of do things big too with having the whole crowd behind me. So I thought personally I think the next one for me, if I had to go down, Dom's was great, don't get me wrong, but I think Bianca Belair's was something special. To have the different groups of kids that were with you, and then hearing the story about how one of the little girl performers, the mother passed away on the same day as WrestleMania, and still Bianca still guided her to do the performance. I think that's something, pretty special when you think about something like that. So Bianca said in the press conference, she goes, I have to try and find my why. And she goes, in a lot of cases for like the WrestleManias, when I have a lot of the different groups and how representation matters, I think it was really important for her. And I think that's what makes her definitely her WrestleMania entrance is extremely unique. So that was kind of pretty cool to see on my end. So I think anytime we can get some good in this world and positivity, I think it's a good thing, right? So and I know that you guys agree. Now, we talked a little bit about it. We've kind of dabbled a little bit about all the great things, and we've kind of heard some couple of, not so great things. But if you had to ultimately, both of you, pick your ultimate disappointment from the weekend, and it could be what you saw in the ring or even outside of the ring or something that was related, tied into the event, what do you think your biggest disappointment of WrestleMania weekend would be? So, Josh, we'll start with you. What do you think your biggest disappointment of the 2 days was, if you had to pick one thing?
I don't really. I'm not super disappointed with anything. I did make a couple notes. I was disappointed that Asuka didn't win. I really like Asuka. She has a really unique style, and I think she brings something different to the women's division. It's definitely something that I really respect when I watch her wrestle. She makes everybody look better in the ring. And then of course, the other thing that was a big disappointment was that Omos didn't go over. So. But other than that, I don't think there's too much disappointment for me. It was a great show, and it was as expected. Bad matches, good matches. Never going to be expecting anything out of a John Cena match. So,
Chris, what about you? Biggest disappointment of WrestleMania weekend?
And just for the record, Asuka's 0-5 at WrestleMania. Let's see. Biggest disappointment. I mean, I agree with Josh. I don't want to just go with the same thing, but Asuka, I was there for her debut, and I don't know. I was a big fan right from the start. So I don't know. I think it would have been good for her to carry the belt for a little bit, other than Bianca. I mean, I like Bianca's power game in the ring, but I don't know. That's about all I like about it. I was just ready for, Asuka to just be, that professional pro wrestler who goes in and wrestles, and just to go and hold that belt for a while, have some meaningful feuds.
Do you find, Chris, can I ask you, do you find it weird, like they switched her, they brought her, like brought the new character in, and that's kind of why I thought she was going to win, is because they're introducing this new character. She's going to be able to beat Bianca, and then she doesn't go over. But the other thought I was having about her is, like, does she not go over because she's not a talker, and like, do they need to give her a manager to help, get her, give her like a Paul Heyman kind of style person so that she doesn't falter? Because I feel like the reason that wrestlers like her aren't going over is because they're not able to speak well.
It is right. It is kind of not, I don't really have the right word for it, but when you have somebody and you're having a promo, and you're shooting a promo, and you don't understand what the other person is saying, it's kind of, I see you're passionate and fiery about it, but when she's in a promo with somebody, she speaks Japanese, and then it's basically, okay, I don't know what you said, but it could be a reason why they don't put a belt on her. Like, she can't, but she's one of the few where she can come out, and instead of having that promo, she comes out, has a great match, and that's what you want to see from Asuka. So to me, I don't mind. I'd rather hear her not speak the Japanese and just let the wrestling do the talking. But you could be right there. It could be a reason.
And I'd have to agree. It could play a factor, but I honestly believe as well that when you kind of look at the division, and if you put both divisions together, that she's the MVP for chasing titles. And so when you're going out of it, she creates a lot of buzz on the title, and she doesn't really need a title, because at the end of the day, we know she can kick somebody's head in. We know that she could submit somebody or break an arm if she had to. Like, it's kind of like, I don't want to compare her to Ronda Rousey, but at the end of the day, it's almost like she's better than Ronda Rousey. Like, I almost believe her more that she's going to hurt somebody more than Ronda Rousey would, in a way. and that comes from without talking. So maybe she does need that talker, maybe she does, but I honestly think the only place that she would need a talker is in the American professional wrestling scene, which is arguably the biggest scene. Like, if you were to send her to New Japan, like, she'd probably have some of the best matches in New Japan. She could literally fight men in New Japan and still probably have an amazing match compared to anybody. She is legitimately that good. And, so I also think the WWE, like I said, likes her in this chase spot, because I think when they have her in this chase spot, she's believable as a challenger. And even though she doesn't win, she can still get those other two over. And let's face it, Bianca, when you look at Bianca, Charlotte, and now possibly even Rhea Ripley, they're big money draws outside of the business, right? Like, Bianca's a massive draw outside. Like, she draws so much. It's the same like the Mysterios, the Latino community and everything. They just draw so much business in, right? So when you're looking at a lot of that, like, Asuka's a really good chaser, and that's kind of where they like her, right? So disappointments. Did we get everybody for disappointments?
Just not you.
Kind of less. Oh, just not me. My biggest disappointment, and we'll keep it short and sweet, but is literally the injury that Finn Balor sustained in the Hell in a Cell. I felt it really took away. Accidents happen, shit happens when you're in the ring. We know that. But like when you need to get 15 stitches in there and you're bleeding all over the place and you know it's bad, it's really hard to have a match that's really conducive and up to your standards. And we've seen that happen too with a couple of bad injuries in some of the some of the extreme matches and stuff where something happens. It just kind of takes away the luster from it. And I think with them building up to something for so long, and I thought we were finally going to get the end of it, and it still might be the end of it. I just don't think it's a fitting end for and I don't think they would be happy with that ending for both of them being the types of wrestlers and high quality wrestlers and caliber wrestlers that they are. So I think that was my biggest disappointment. Overall, I still think they did the best they could, but I really wish what that match would have looked like without him having the that big scenario right in the beginning. So
I put the cut in the chat.
Nice. Yeah,
you see that cut,
nasty.
Chris?
Chris, are you
can you
still
see
there?
the cut in the chat? If you go down to the There's at the top right, there's a text box that says show chat.
Okay. Holy jeez, I'm 40, man. I'm 40.
It's okay. Like right under the X for Discord, there should be a like a show chat,
Oh, that's horrendous.
right? he they were like he looked angry at the doctor. Let me go. Like he was like you could see they were like purposely not filming him, and then just before he was getting back into the match, you could see him like telling the doctor to piss off. Like I have to finish this match. Like that's a warrior right there. I don't. You want to people want to say wrestling isn't real? Yeah, that's real.
Yeah, and I think when you're looking at it, that's kind of where the takeoff was, because then now you have Edge showing genuine concern. It kind of gets away from it, but we know that it's real life, right? Like you know that that's part of it. Like you care about the person that you're working with. You don't want to obviously hurt them like bad like that. And it's obviously just an accident in the ring, right? But I think it really took away from some of the malice that we could have saw them do to each other if there wasn't a substantial blood loss on the inside of the ring.
Well, you could see the doctor's face when he was trying to go back in. She was like, "No, you can't." Like you, she was almost like trying to stop him. It looked like I'm surprised that match continued.
Yeah. Well, that's a big one. So I think other than that, we got a pretty good discussion. And now one of the things that really come out with, and we had a chat about this last night in our, because for those that don't know, and why would you? It's our second episode. We have a group chat when we watch wrestling so that we can talk to each other. And one of the things that we actually did talk about last night was a lot about kicking around this 1,000-day marker with Roman Reigns. And one of the things that kind of got me talking about when I wrote out the questions for today's episode is really coming out to, is Roman Reigns really the greatest of all time? And when you guys are thinking about that, it's about, is he just the greatest of the modern era? Is he the greatest of this generation? Or legitimately, is he the greatest professional wrestler that ever lived? Let's try and figure that out. So let's have a talk and see where we're at. Chris, what do you think? Roman Reigns, like where you're at, anything that you can use, data, feelings, emotion, whatever you want to talk about. Is he the greatest of all time, or is he just the greatest in his own mind?
Oh man, I didn't like Roman Reigns so much, but you look at the WrestleManias, the ticket sales that those WrestleManias get, and he's been at the top of most of them in the last little while. So I don't know, you gotta give it to him there. He did become, after getting buried by John Cena one day, I guess he thought to himself, yeah, I'm gonna go and learn promos, and he went and learned his promos, and he's not bad at all. It's tough. It's tough to give someone that I've only been watching for, let's say, 7 years the greatest of all time, just considering everything else I've watched. Is he there for me yet? No. Is he getting closer to being in those tops for me? He's getting closer. So I just can't give him the greatest. I think he's the best right now.
I would have to agree that he's the best right now. I think when we're looking at it, we're talking about this 1,000 days. I know, Josh, we were talking about the 1,000 days yesterday, and you know what? It can go either way when you're looking at it. But I think a lot of people look at the longevity of a reign and they say, is that person the best person that ever lived? Because if we were doing that, we'd probably be looking back into the 30s, the 20s and 30s with some wrestlers that we never even heard of, right? So I think when we go through it, I think on a level, we know that Roman is going to be in the category of probably a first ballot Hall of Famer. And you look at possibly from those ticket numbers and everything, but can he really be the greatest of all time? If we had to compare him with Hulk Hogan, Savage, if we have to go Attitude Era and we put him next to The Rock or Stone Cold, or I know Triple H might not be with Stone Cold or The Rock, but I'd probably put him up there too. He's another first ballot, but he was also at one point in that era considered to be the greatest wrestler of his generation at one point in that era. So there's so many names we can have. We can talk about Bret Hart, we can talk about all these other people, but where does he sit? Do you think right now that he would be even in the top 3, the top 5? Josh, what do you think?
Well, I would say definitely the way that they're booking him as the greatest of all time. Maybe, it's hard to say when you look at the other records for length, for longevity. I don't think it's fair to compare him to Bruno Sammartino. Those are different eras. Guys, are traveling all over the place. They're not as visible as they are. In our time, no one has ever gone this long. in a match. Do I think that he's the greatest wrestler in ring in the sense where it's like, that's the guy who's going to put on the best match all the time? I don't think so. He puts on great matches as, more than anybody else right now. But he's also in the biggest matches. The way that they book him, he's being booked as the greatest of all time, or at least in the last 20 years. But I still don't, I wouldn't call him the best of all time just because he doesn't win on his own. So that's how I would argue. But that's how wrestling is. They book the heels to win like that. So it's fine. But I'd say that, if you want to be true best of all time, then you got to do it without any assistance. But this isn't a real fight game. This is wrestling. So it's not like that. But yeah, so I'd say that, right now, and, in our lifetime, he's the best champion of all time, just for the length of reign that he's been unstoppable. He's beaten everybody at the top and hasn't lost in almost 1,000 days. And I'd argue that that's part of the reason why he won at WrestleMania, is to give him that 1,000 days. I know it's not a big deal, but I feel like they keep on talking about how many days he's been the champion, and they're getting closer and closer. And if you really look at any of the next big events that are coming up, SummerSlam is, probably the biggest one. And, maybe that's where he loses it, and you set up the Cody story longer, or you move to someone else.
Yeah, it's rough to go through when you're actually kind of trying to figure out. I've been trying to think what makes Roman so different from all the other champions when we're having this conversation, and why I like this question is that he's not like every other champion, and his reign is his own reign, and it's something that you've never really seen before. Why? And let me give you some data. I remember when CM Punk won the title in AEW, and they're talking about him having a reign of 74 days or 80 days or something like that. They said that in those 80 days, he wrestled and had more title defenses than Roman Reigns did in almost a year. Or something like Roman Reigns only wrestled in that one of the years, he only wrestled, even if you saw the list was only really 30 or 32 people over the course of 3 years, if you're thinking about it. It's not really a massive list, but that's part of what makes the draw so unique. You used to have guys like Cena that would put the title up every single week. And yeah, does that make a year-long hold of the title much better to look at? Of course it does, because you're going to wrestle 150 times in a year. But what separates Roman from all these guys is that he has this weird ability just to have... He's the best psychological wrestler on planet Earth. I don't care what anybody says. People talk about, who can create a story? Who creates this thing? Roman creates a story every time he's in the ring. Everything that he does is meaningful, even stepping out of the ring from the Brock Lesnar beatdown, which we'll probably talk about. What do you mean, sorry?
I wonder how that take's going to go over.
Sorry, Chris?
I wonder how that take's going to go over with the listeners of... I'm just curious.
I don't know, but psychologically it is. Everything he does in his match is important, right? He slows everything down. He's super slow on his way to the entrance ring. He does a lot of things deliberately because that kind of makes him who he is. It's all about him, right? So when it comes through, I don't necessarily think that he's the most gifted wrestler. I don't think when it comes to a skills perspective that I think Kenny Omega destroys him. But I think the way that he sets up matches and the way that he kind of breaks it down, it makes things believable and breaks things down. He used to be like John Cena, Chris, where he has and he demonstrates the same moves. He does, the Superman punch, and he does the spear, and they're simple moves. They're nothing fucking fancy, but he doesn't do them like Cena used to do his moves in a thing. And Roman used to do that, but now he's kind of pulling them out and he's putting them in spots that are more important. Are we going to see 3 Superman punch in a contest that's long against Cody? Yeah, probably, but they're pulled out in much better spots. Now, I think when you're looking at wrestling purists, I don't think Roman gets enough credit for the psychological aspect. I really don't. And I think when it comes to it, I don't think he's the greatest of all time. But I think right now in the world, psychologically, and putting together a match against these guys, I think he's really done it. Now, if you guys think I'm totally wrong, please tell me why. Because, I don't know. That's what I've been watching for him for the last 6 months, and his matches have been really captivating and compelling shit on TV. So, I mean, I don't know really what else to say. We've all been sitting there saying that this is the Bloodline's the best story on TV, and it is. And yeah, it's part of all the characters that are involved, but this has been a year-long thing, and to me, as much as Sammy is the MVP for what a lot of people are, I honestly believe that Roman's the MVP because he's the foil to Sammy. Without Roman, you don't have Sami Zayn in that spot. And that's just my personal thought on it.
And Roman was up top during that whole run. He was the main pillar of that run. So again, like I said, I wasn't a huge Roman Reigns fan for a while, but to tell you the truth, not until we talked about doing this podcast is I wasn't really into WWE as much. And then you watch it, like, like I know what was going on, but I'm not going to put time out of my Monday to go watch it. Unlike now. But yeah, I would just seeing him from the last time I saw him, and then watching him regularly. Yeah, he's, he knows what he's doing, and that's what he's doing. He knows what he's doing is going to get a reaction. He knows, and now he knows how to do it. And he's developed his own. Yeah, he doesn't wrestle that much. He doesn't, in the ring, he doesn't have to do as much as other people have to do, and it's just his presence. Like he's gotten it to the point where his presence is a thing.
I think it's better for his character not to fight all the time. I find it discounts the other like when you have a title match that's inconsequential, like where the person's clearly not going to win, you might as well not have it. Like you can have that match with the Intercontinental Champion then. Like I don't see a reason to, like last night when they didn't have the rematch. That makes total sense to me. There's no reason why Roman should be fighting a title match on Raw. It's too small. I think that, for 1,000 days he wrestles every pay-per-view, and he might get in the ring every once in a while in a tag match or something stupid that, it sets part of the story up. But I think that, it's a good way to book him. And every match that he has is the biggest match of the year. Like it's always a big, important match. It doesn't seem like it's not important, except for Logan Paul.
All right, guys. Well, we're getting close to ending the hour. I just want to end the hour with one more quick question. What were your big takeaways from Chris? I know it's your most excited time of the year when we talk about the Raw after WrestleMania show.
Oh yeah.
So I don't know if you want to kick it off. What were your feeling about the show yesterday in regards to Raw after WrestleMania?
Yeah, not did it stand out as one of the best ones after WrestleMania? No. Nice to get. I mean, the Brock Lesnar thing I didn't see that coming. Like I had no idea.
None of us did.
I thought he was already in Saskatchewan by now. So that was really cool, and you like to see that every once in a while from WWE, where you don't know what's going to happen, and it doesn't, it doesn't quite make sense, but it's exciting. Unlike the women's tag match, where it's like, why are Natalya and Shotzi together? Like you know what I mean?
Josh, what were your thoughts?
Yeah, I agree with Chris. I think the Brock turn isn't. I feel like if his music goes off next week and he doesn't attack Cody Rhodes again, he'll probably still get a huge pop and people will still probably cheer for him. For me, yeah, I mean, obviously we're gonna hear this story on Friday potentially. That's the great part of it. I think that's wonderful. I really.
But why did he attack Cody? That's another like.
Yeah, it's not like it's not like Roman's going to offer him, you attack Cody and then I'll let you challenge me for a title again, because he clearly doesn't want to face Brock again. For me, it was interesting to see Rhea Ripley come out and talk when Bianca was going. I really hope they don't move to having an undisputed women's championship. I really think this is enough of this, undisputed championships. If they're going to go that way, then they might as well just combine the two brands and stop having separate brands. It doesn't make any sense to me, but yeah, those are the two big moments for me.
Yeah, I don't think it was really anything crazy to write home about. I thought they did a really good job of pushing how good WrestleMania was when we looked at it for the 2 days. But I think that the Street Profits and Kevin Owens and Sammy was pretty good, but really wasn't anything super crazy that kind of really stood out. I think really the shocking thing was the Brock beating, and not just that the Brock beating was like 20 seconds. The Brock beating was like 5 or 6 minutes, and it was just like. It just kind of really wanted to hammer home that he was really there just to kick the living shit out of Cody, and that's kind of how it is. But like I said, I just loved how once Brock did the first thing when they got introduced, and just basically everybody else just got out of the ring and left. Yeah, we're not having this match. This match is over. Like there's not even going to be a match. So
another night that Roman doesn't fight.
Yeah, pretty much, right? Like, yeah, just show up and got my gloves and my my head of the table shirt on. Yeah, we're not fighting today. Let's go. The private jet's waiting with the Usos on it because they weren't allowed into the into the dressing room, so they got to go to the private jet with all the seafood, apparently, according to Paul Heyman. So, but guys, we did it. We got through episode number 2. We're going to be looking forward at some other stuff. So obviously this one was really WWE dedicated because obviously WrestleMania. I think we're going to probably be scheduling another podcast for next week. That'll be episode 3. Like we're starting to sound like a Star Wars like trilogy at this point. But what we're going to do is we'll try and have some other things that we'll talk about. We'll probably talk about some WWE, some AEW, and maybe start talking about some, I don't know, guys, an event that we're going to, some Forbidden Door on June 25th.
Yeah, that's gonna be fun. We can talk about.
You guys both sound.
We can predict now we can predict now who we think is going to be in Forbidden Door, and we can see how those turn out.
I mean, we're gonna probably. I think we're gonna hopefully see Mercedes. That'll be a good one too. But we gotta save some of the stuff for the show, right, Chris? So we'll. I think the big one that's gonna come out next week. One of the topics will definitely be where G.O.A.T's gonna end up. I think that's gonna be a good starting point. But we'll have that in the questions.
What about where Logan Paul's gonna end up? His contract's up too.
Yeah, he said. What did he say? It's the first time that he doesn't have a job in a while, and you're just like, "Fuck you, man." But anyways, with that being said, thank you so much to all our listeners out there. We really appreciate it. Chris has been watching our analytics, and he's saying that we're skyrocketing into the millions after our first episode. I don't know if that's accurate or not, but other than that, with that being said, please check us out. If you're listening to us already, please share the word, spread the word out there on Facebook. Let people know, share on your Spotify and on any of your Google accounts. And hey, man, let's talk about wrestling, because the more people we can get involved, we can start taking some viewers' questions, and that'll be a lot more fun too. So, that being said, I bid you adieu. Good night.